Okay, you've been hearing about American Pravda, the latest Project Veritas exposure of the deep state, liberals, whatever you want to call it, this time involving CNN, and Laura Loomer, who is at the Daily Wire and has only been there for a few weeks, but is already making a big name for herself during her time there.
No, Ben, do you want to start over? I've been at Rebel Media. Do you want to just re-record?
Oh, no, I'm going to apologize right now because I'm tired. Rebel Media. I want to show I'm fallible. No, I know that. Rebel Media. In fact, we talked about the Daily Wire last time. No, we all make mistakes, Laura, and I'm one of those people. But thank you for correcting me there. And but she hit a home run, and the rest of the people at Project Veritas did. I don't know exactly what her role was there, but you've probably watched the video by now. And Laura, where do we begin? I just want to make sure you have the forum and that you reach my audience, and I'll hit you with questions wherever appropriate. But I know once you get going, you can get going, and so let me let you get going.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. Yeah, I worked for Project Veritas for about 3 years up until about 2.5 weeks ago. I was an undercover journalist there, and I did communications work as well. So, I'm well aware of how this process works and how, Project Veritas goes about obtaining video content and the release process. And although I'm at Rebel Media now, I spent the entire night up until 5 o'clock this morning with James O'Keefe and the Project Veritas staff, just reporting from within Veritas headquarters, watching this entire release go down. So it's been very exciting. The video was supposed to be released this morning at 10 a.m., but somebody leaked it. Mm-hmm. So around midnight, we started seeing, conservative pundits and people talk about it on Reddit, and Project Veritas had no other choice but to just launch the video.
Yeah. Do you know who leaked it? I mean, I thought it was a surprising time. I saw it at like 1 a.m. I'm so tired. I just didn't sleep much last night.
Yeah, I didn't sleep either. I know how you feel.
Yeah, but you were doing something productive. I think I slept too much the previous couple nights, and I had done a long walk, and maybe the endorphins kicked in, and I'd gone to karaoke and actually nailed 2 songs, and maybe I was excited. But whatever, I saw it at 1:30. Who leaked it? Do you have any idea? It wasn't James Comey, I assume.
It was the Russians.
Oh, duh, obviously.
The Russians, yeah. I don't know. I have no idea, but clearly somebody was just so excited. Only a few people received the draft copy, and somebody was probably too excited to contain it, and they leaked it. But no damage was really done. As you can see, Donald Trump is talking about the story. Donald Trump Jr. is all over the news, trending on Twitter. It's a great story. We have some exclusive coverage regarding the release and the leak over at Rebel Media, if you're not already subscribed.
I am.
It's going to send shockwaves.
Yeah, something tells me that part 1 of these 3 parts is not going to be the one people end up talking about. I don't know how much you can tell me, but it reminds me of the debates. Like, people are always often talking about the first debate like it's such a big deal, and I always say, you know what, this presidential debate, no one's going to be talking about it in a few weeks because something more dramatic is going to happen. And it just felt like we're being set up for really something much bigger than this. I mean, because, it was interesting, but this was a reporter who didn't say, maybe it wasn't a smoking gun. It was like a warm gun, I guess you could say. In this case, I think the smoking gun is coming later. But it just revealed what I perceive, and I have some experience with this, is so typical of people in that industry, just the cynicism.
Yeah.
Isn't that what grabbed you?
Yeah, no, and this is shocking already, right? And you are right. I mean, I have an NDA with Project Veritas, of course, but I have seen the videos. I have seen the videos that they have not released yet. I have seen and read over transcripts of video updates that just came in last night. It's extremely damning, and you're right. This is shocking, but what is yet to come is even more shocking. And just stay tuned, because if you think this is bad, you're gonna fall over when you see the next video.
Well, let's go through the lessons that people can pick up from this video. Like, guide us through it. I am assuming, and we're going to assume that the audience has seen it or is capable of hitting pause and should watch this before hearing, this annotated version. But just what jumped out to you most when you first saw this?
Well, I mean, it's just people's willingness to talk, right? So
first of all, yeah.
It's incredible just how much information you can get out of people just by having a conversation with them and getting to know them. And of course, the staff and the journalists at Project Veritas are very well trained and they know how to do this. But I mean, you have a seasoned CNN producer who's well known. This isn't just some low level CNN employee or volunteer. This is a really high ranking CNN producer who's on camera admitting that, the president or the CEO of CNN was forcing them to cover the story, even though they knew that it was fake, right? That he was pushing this narrative, just for ratings. So, it's just, you really get, an inside view inside of CNN, and, it's just, Veritas is everywhere.
I wonder, Laura, if there's something psychological going on. If people don't believe in their mission, they're just a little less buttoned up, that they're just more likely to talk because they don't really care. They don't believe in it. I mean, it's hard to believe that anyone in CNN was really a true believer about the Russia thing because they knew it was BS. They knew that it was being done for ratings. I'm assuming that this guy who really worked in health, if I'm not mistaken, was involved in all the meetings, just said, I don't care who I talk to, but you guys over at Rebel Media would be a lot tighter because you really believe in what you're doing. I mean, that's my outsider's perspective, but I think there's truth to that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I agree. And look, the people over at Project Veritas, they're experts at getting information out of people, right? And really, getting stories that other people really aren't capable of getting. Most people, look at how many people have been talking about the fact that this Russia story is fake news for months, right? And it's taken almost a year, almost copy somebody to finally confirm it and get a soundbite from CNN. So, it's got to be demoralizing. Like, imagine working for a company that everybody is criticizing, that even the president has referred to as fake news, and then you have to defend it when you have insider information that, it is fake, and what the president is saying is really true. So I can understand why he opened up to this Veritas operative because, like you said, I mean, these people, it's got to be a real blow to your self-esteem working for such a discredited news organization.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, I knew Jim Acosta a little bit when I was on the campaign trail doing the stuff for RSBN, and he almost seems to me like a tortured soul because I talked politics with him off there, and he just, just off when he's off the cuff, talking casually, he just doesn't seem that liberal, honestly. It's just like he's doing his job. He knows it's a job, but I got the sense he doesn't really believe in all the stuff he has to do, that he probably isn't even a liberal. I mean, that's just my impression of Jim Acosta. I may be wrong. He may have been just being nice because he knew I was conservative, but I imagine there's a lot of that over there. MSNBC, by the way, may be a totally different story. I imagine a lot of them really believe it, but it's, I guess, the difference between Hillary Clinton supporters and Bernie Sanders supporters, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, well, look, people will say and do anything for a paycheck, right? So it just goes to show you how degenerate a lot of these anchors and correspondents really are. Because if that is the case, like, they have a moral obligation and a journalistic obligation to report the truth. And if he really appeared that way, it just goes to show that there's this widespread problem in the media where these people are saying and doing anything, no matter how destructive it is to the American political landscape and climate, to get a paycheck. And I think that that's a problem, and it needs to be shut down. I mean, I'm calling for Donald Trump and Sean Spicer to totally revoke CNN's press credentials and permanently ban them from the White House. Because
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because and I've said this before when Trump called out Acosta in particular, it's at the point where it should be 3 strikes, you're out. You have to sort of question Trump's making these comments when he has the power to revoke credentials, but he doesn't. It's as if it's okay with him, as if he's just playing the game too, to me. I mean, I know it's a bold move, but, if you keep saying these things about CNN, what are you doing letting them in there? How many other publications, even if they're just like a medium-sized city, would love to have the opportunity to be in there. And you're constantly questioning CNN's mission, so why not go forward and revoke the credentials?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're such a threat to national security. This has become a national security issue, right? They accuse people in the Trump administration of being a threat to national security, but these accusations, this fake news that CNN has created to destabilize the American political landscape and undermine President Trump has actually threatened national security, has actually defamed people, has resulted in a lot of damages and a lot of hurt and trouble and violence in this country. I mean, we were talking last time on your show about the increase of political violence in this country. How much political violence has been inspired by this fake news Russia narrative?
Well,
right? Really
Alexandria was by that. I mean, I don't know if people are putting two and two together today, but to me it's pretty obvious. This guy was a messed up character to begin with, but the constant egging him on about Russia, I mean, I think the goal really is not to have a mass revolt, but to appeal to a few crazies out there who will do the dirty work. It's like, frankly, like Islam.
Yeah.
They get a few sexually frustrated men to do the dirty work while the people who benefit from it stay far from the scene. Sorry if that's an inappropriate analogy, but that's just what comes to mind. And it just, you know what else came to mind on this, Laura? With CNN, you question their coverage of things like Ferguson, Missouri. And how much of it was egging it on because they wanted ratings. It was great for ratings for them. And to hell with what it does to the community. It makes puts a lot in perspective.
It's not just Russia. If they're making stuff up about Russia, what else are they lying about? Right? And I don't know if you've seen this, but just in the time since we have been talking, Brian Stelter from CNN.
Piece of work.
This is the CNN statement. I'm going to read it to you right now. This
is
what CNN
has
decided to release regarding the tapes that came out today. CNN stands by our medical producer, John Bonifield. Diversity of personal opinion is what makes CNN strong.
Really?
We welcome it and embrace it. Diversity of personal opinion. They are actually excusing this story as diversity of personal opinion. I'm sorry, but diversity, your personal opinion is not what gets to drive a news narrative for the entire country, right? Your personal opinion isn't what gets to be the result of congressional hearings and destabilization of the Trump administration. I mean, I just can't believe.
I mean, just think about the positive. I mean, it's amazing, by the way, to me, what a tool. And I really use that term carefully. It's not just an all-purpose epithet. It's just like he will do whatever. I mean, he's not there for his looks, that's for sure. Brian Stelter is such a brown-noser. And he just, if you know his career before he got to CNN, it's amazing that this guy has it for him. But you wonder about that. And, okay, diversity of opinion. Come on, CNN is so talking out of its ass. What if someone had a diversity of opinion about, well, you know what, Facebook is totally promoting their Pride Month in July. Could you really think CNN is going to tolerate a diversity of opinion on that one? I don't think so.
Yeah. No, and he's totally irrelevant, right? So, I mean, I'm just comparing him. Look at CNN, how many they're a liberal mainstream outlet. He has almost 500,000 followers on Twitter, and his tweets right now are receiving less than 100 impressions and likes per tweet, right? So, nobody cares. Like they're becoming disillusioned with CNN, and nobody even wants to read his fake news statements about fake news, right? He's just confirmed that even CNN's PR statements regarding fake news are fake news.
It's amazing comparing that to like Jack Posobiec or Paul Joseph Watson.
No, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, he posted a tweet an hour ago, and it has 137 likes, and it's the actual statement, the first statement to be released from CNN. Like, this should have thousands of tweets.
Yes.
And the fact that it's a national or international news story right now, but nobody cares because
that's really incredible.
Finally realizing that CNN is fake news.
I mean, so he's the authority, and he's getting 130 likes on this. So it's a very soft level of support he has there. That's incredible. That's really an incredible number. That's like his is the official response, and it's getting that little traffic. I mean, 137 is still a lot more. I mean, I looked one time. That guy Tom Lamas, is he on ABC or CBS? And just no one retweets him. No one likes his stuff. I mean, he's so generic, bland, liberal, politically correct liberal. But wow, Brian Stelter's is basically the official response, and it's getting that little enthusiasm.
Yeah, and they quoted TMZ as like the official source for the statement. So it's really strange. I mean, you're quoting TMZ, not to knock TMZ, right? They get a lot of.
They're great at what they do. Hey.
They're great at what they do, but this is an international news story that concerns the president, and they're giving a statement to TMZ.
Who's running that place? And you know what? Actually, I mean that as a serious question. It's Zucker, right? Is the guy who runs CNN?
Yeah, who needs to step down immediately. I mean,
I would think so.
Look at what happened yesterday, right? So you had, 3 people at CNN who had to resign because of the fake story regarding Trump ally.
Mm-hmm.
They totally made up more fake news about his ties to a Russian investment bank, and then they sent out an internal email at CNN saying that all of the Russia stories, anything that goes out, whether it be social media or anything, had to be approved by people at the top, right? Because they're starting to face legal challenges and consequences from reporting so much fake news. And literally one day after that happens, O'Keefe drops this bombshell, and it makes you wonder, what are they going to do?
Yeah, let me ask you. It may not be in the scope of the story or what you know. So if you don't know, it's fine. But is MSNBC running things just a little bit more tightly, that they're not having these problems that CNN is having right now? I mean, we know their bias, of course, but from a management perspective, are they just running a slightly tighter ship over there?
I mean, look, I think MSNBC is fake news too, right?
I do too.
They push a lot of these narratives as well, but I think that CNN is the ringleader in all of this. They've really taken the lead on pushing this Russia narrative and driving it nonstop. I mean, I think O'Keefe mentioned in his video that since the inauguration or the election of Trump, CNN has mentioned Russia over 16,000 times on air. I mean, it's just, like MSNBC is probably reporting similar information, but I don't think they've mentioned Russia 16,000 times. I mean, That's absurd.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if there's a story there. It's another thing if not. I mean, I can imagine the stories they haven't even mentioned 100 times, but we won't go into that right now. What, if you don't mind looking into a crystal ball here, what do you see happening in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months in terms of the media, in terms of a shakeout? What do you see developing without giving away what the rest of your investigation is going to reveal?
Well, I see that people are going to become extremely red-pilled, right? So there's no running from this anymore.
Explain that term to people who may not know it, though. I mean, I know it, but not everyone necessarily does.
It comes from the Matrix, right? It's like when what is it? Keanu Reeves is faced with a blue pill or a red pill, right? The blue pill keeps you in your current state, and the red pill brings you to reality and wakes you up. It makes you more woke, right? It gives you a reality check. So, during the election, the term red pill became more popular to, reference people who were hit with a truth bomb, right? And they became more aware of the truth, and we like to use it for people who are often, liberals who wake up and, cross over to Team Trump or the Trump train and, realize that they've been living in the darkness for some time. So I think that a lot of people are about to get red-pilled. They're going to see, wow, this was actually caught on tape, and I can't defend this anymore. I can no longer defend CNN or MSNBC or, any of the mainstream media outlets that are about to be exposed. So, I think that there's going to be a lot of more cognitive dissonance. There's going to be a lot of tension between the administration and the media, growing tension between the people and the media. And I think that there's going to be a massive shift over to alternative media sites and a drastic decrease in ratings. I mean, that's just what I predict, because I don't know how anybody could to continue to get their news from these liberal mainstream media outlets after being hit with such, deceitful information?
Well, I have a response to that, but you said, I know you're very busy today, and you said you had 20 minutes. I'll keep you on longer if you have the time right now, because I do have more questions.
Yeah, no, I can talk for a few minutes. It's just been very hectic, but yeah.
I know. Whenever you have to go, but I'm happy to give you more time.
Yeah.
Well, related to that, where people get their news from. And this is true of me too, I go to Twitter, and people who I respect, who I know where they're coming from, not some, I go get my information from there. It's just become my habit, and I imagine it's true for you too, because you're significantly younger than I am. I go to Jack Silvick, Paul Joseph Watson, et cetera. Maybe I'll start going to Laura Loomer too.
Yeah.
But, so I don't know how much people are really going to CNN anymore, because I imagine that trend is not limited to the right, where people are doing such things. I imagine people on the left, it might be the wrong information.
Look, I mean, if you just look at the impressions, so several of the people that you just mentioned right now, and I like using Mike Cernovich as an example.
Yeah, I meant
he gets over 100 million impressions a month, right? I think he's nearing like 200 million Twitter impressions. That's more than CNN's viewers per month on some of these shows, right? So these alternative media personalities and journalists who are dominating Twitter and social media, they're already getting more viewers and influencing more people than the mainstream media.
Yeah, and they're younger viewers too, by the way, of course.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a wide range of people. So social media is already more effective than mainstream media, and especially in terms of, when you compare it to the liberal mainstream media, these conservative Twitter personalities and alternative media journalists are already, influencing more people, as I said. So we're already at that point in time.
Yeah, and speaking of getting your news from, say, Laura Loomer, which people can find at Laura, Laura, Loomer on Twitter, here's a great point that we just haven't touched on yet that you made maybe an hour ago, and we're recording this a few hours in advance of the show.
Right.
The show's first airing. You wrote, at James O'Keefe III is one of the greatest and most effective journalists in the world, yet at Jack won't, quote, verify him. And then you have hashtags Witch Hunt and hashtag American Pravda, which I love, by the way. And that's so funny. How could he not be verified? I see some of the people who are not verified, and by the way, you and I are both not verified, I don't think, but my audience isn't that big.
I'm in the process of trying to become verified, but it is difficult because it's no surprise that Twitter targets these people, and they don't want to verify a lot of conservatives. So yeah, you see a lot of people, and you're like, who is this person? Like, I've never heard of them in my life. Or people who just really haven't accomplished much, and they're verified on Twitter. Yet you have people who are really influencing the world and the media, like James O'Keefe, and he's still not verified on Twitter.
Amazing.
But you look at some of these other journalists who are really subpar compared to O'Keefe, and they're verified, right? So it makes no sense.
Well, and the whole verification isn't really about verification. It's about creating an elite and limiting the numbers of people who are in the elite. I mean, I have friends who are verified. I've seen their, I see how it works. You can have a separate section just from responses for people who are verified. And so I can it's so funny how the subtle things that are done by, I don't know if deep state's the word, by Twitter, Facebook, et cetera, to sort of clamp down on conservatives, and YouTube for that matter as well.
Yeah, no, it's a way of like delegitimizing people or trying to make them appear not as important in the eyes of the public, right? Because people hold more value when they see a little blue check mark next to your name, because it's a sign of status, right? Social media. A lot of celebrities will only respond to people who are verified. Yeah, but I mean, I don't think James has that problem, right? Like, he's so respected that so many people reply to him, and I mean, the president's tweeting about him today.
Yes,
so,
it's a joke.
It's superficial. So I talk about this blue check mark and how it's annoying how they haven't given it to James, but it's very superficial, and really it's just for appearances only. It doesn't really mean much because as you can see, people without check marks are producing better content than many of those with blue check marks.
Oh yeah, and we'd like to think that here over at Backlash. And here's another good tweet you made, and raises something interesting that we also haven't talked about yet. Someone may want to go check on Jay Bonafield's CNN to make sure he's still alive before CNN pulls a Clinton. And then the same American Pravda and hashtag fake news CNN. We haven't heard from Bonafield, have we?
No, and right, I mean, we always joke about CNN and call them the Clinton News Network, but we live in an era, right, and it not only of extreme political violence, but extreme consequences for whistleblowers and people who come out and expose the liberals, the establishment, and the mainstream media for what they really are. So, there's a lot of theories out there and a lot of concern about the Clinton hit list, as people like to call it, and all of the people who surrounded the Clintons who have mysteriously died or ended up dead somewhere, conveniently committed suicide. I mean, there's a lot of questions, and it's scary. We're living in a world now where, we joke about this, and it was, partially a joke, but I'm also kind of being serious. I mean, we really need to check on this guy, because I haven't heard anything from him. He hasn't made any kind of public statements, and I'm sure he's facing a lot of backlash.
Yep. Oh, thanks for using our show title, by the way, there.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, we like you rebels in the media. No, I wanted to return the favor there. Okay.
No, great. Thank you.
Your star is clearly on the rise, Laura. A lot of people know you have many more times again, I'm tired. Multiple times the number of people know your name than did a few weeks ago. I don't know much about you. I've seen a picture. I know a little bit about your background, that you're Jewish, and you're about 22 years old, 23 or something. But
24.
Where do you? 24. Okay, close enough. Tell us a little bit about you, like where you get this energy from, what's motivating you, because not everyone does this. In fact, almost like no one has your chutzpah, I guess, to use a word, from one Jew to another.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah, no, so I'm young, right? I'm 24, but I've always been really passionate about politics and journalism and really just, conservatism in general. So, I
Did you grow up that way? Are your parents that way? Are you religious?
I actually went to boarding school, so I spent most of my time out of the house, kind of away from my family. But, my family's conservative. I wouldn't say they're, diehard political people, but they watch the news, and I grew up in a household where it was, I was taught to have an appreciation for the news and to know about current events, right? I mean, my parents always made sure that we knew what was going on, and that's important because you need to know what's happening in the world. So I always made an effort, even in high school away from home to watch the news and stay up to date with current events, because I like talking and I like discussing current events and having debates with people. I went to college. I was really involved with college Republicans. I was the president.
Where did you go to college?
I did a semester at Mount Holyoke in Massachusetts, but it was crazy. It was a women's college.
Yeah, I know all about Mount Holyoke. I went to college.
I had no friends, and my roommates actually ripped my Republican stickers and posters off my wall. And
I got to ask a question. I don't know where you grew up. You can tell us that, but what were you thinking going to Mount Holyoke? I mean, what did you think was going to happen
I don't know.
there? No, come on. I know it's a prestigious academic school, but come on, Laura.
That's why, really. I mean, I think I was just kind of like I grew up in Arizona. I wanted to go somewhere away from home, and I think every it's like a self-esteem thing, right? Like when you're young, you want people to think well of you, and so you want them to think that you go to a prestigious university or that you are smart. So,
but you probably could have gotten into prestigious ones that aren't so far left. I imagine you could have gotten into a lot of schools that were at that same level. But man, Mount Holyoke.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was waitlisted. I was waitlisted at Dartmouth, and I didn't get that full acceptance at the end, and that was upsetting. But I wanted to go to an elite institution, but then I saw how horrible it was, and I just went somewhere where I received a bigger scholarship. So I went to school in Florida, and
But you went to University of Florida, Gainesville, you said?
No, it was called Barry University, actually.
Oh, down in South Florida.
In Miami.
Yeah.
And, I was really involved with politics there, did some activism, got in some trouble for my activism and being so outspoken.
Wait. What did you do? And what did you get in trouble for?
Well,
We're getting to know you here. Come on.
The first, so my first run-in with my university was several times on 9/11, 2 different years. I put some posters on campus that said "Never Forget" and had some graphic imagery of what happened, and then I was threatened to be shut down, as a student organization on campus because they said that my posters triggered Muslim students.
So, of course. Wait, they said that without any sense of irony, of course, right?
Yeah. So then another time on 9/11 at my university, they had an interfaith ceremony, and they had an imam who was chanting Allahu Akbar numerous times as a way to open up the ceremony. And obviously that's totally inappropriate to do during 9/11. So, I brought that to people's attention. It became a media story, and then from there I was just really passionate about exposing Islam and liberal academia's alignment with Islamic ideology, right? They're in bed with each other, and it's very strange. So I
don't know if they're in. I don't know. In bed implies they're on an equal playing field. I think one side is a little more deferential to the other one, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean we're getting to that point where the left is really aligning itself with Islam and adopting, jihadi tactics, and I would argue that they're pretty close to being in bed with each other at this point in time.
Have you seen the image of the woman, like with the I'm trying to be polite with a lady on the other line, with the cat ears hat on, wearing that in a mosque, praying to show her solidarity with Islam while wearing that sort of magenta, purple, pink hat? That's an interesting
Very strange.
image. It's really
I haven't seen it, but I went to the Women's March in D.C. and I saw plenty of people wearing hijabs and those genital hats on their heads, and it's very strange. But no, I ended up meeting James O'Keefe at a conference in Florida after I was invited to attend, for exposing that issue on 9/11. And, we had a conversation. I told him I was interested, and then a few months later I get a call from him, and, he flies me to New York, and then he hired me to do some work for him.
Oh, okay.
So, I started doing some work for Veritas, and then I decided to do an expose on several universities across the country in which we would, see if universities showed support for ISIS. So we did it at Cornell, then we did it at my university. And, long story short, I went in with a hidden camera, and my university officials ended up showing support and telling me that I could create a club that sponsors ISIS with university funding.
Great. Just don't do any pro-Israel work. I imagine that would offend.
Right.
That would trigger Muslims.
So, at the end of the day, it became a big national story, and I was kicked out of college despite being valedictorian, having a 4.0 GPA.
No kidding.
And, while I was working for James O'Keefe, actually. So I got kicked out of college for working for James O'Keefe.
This was Barry University.
Yes, yeah. And, so James and I have a really long history, right? Like, he's a friend. He was a former employer. I love him like family. But, I have no regrets. I ended up getting my diploma after, some lawyers got involved. But, it's worth it. And I'm very proud of the work I've done with Project Veritas, even though I work for Rebel Media now. I'm using the skills that I learned through James O'Keefe and at Project Veritas to continue my work at Rebel Media. And, that's just a little about me and how I became started.
Ironically, now that you mentioned Miami, the person I'm having on for the rest of the show is a guy named Charles Lopez. I met him when I was covering, and his daughter Natalie, one of my most popular videos, of just on Twitter during the whole time I was covering Trump. They were Cuban Americans and just very enthusiastic. I think people just liked them because they were charismatic. But he also ended up being the guy. Remember in Miami, there was a guy who was shouting at the people in the media, "You guys will do anything for money. You're all sellouts."
Yeah.
And then they try to make him anti-Semitic, which he's so not. I know him. And for saying you'll do anything for a bunch of shekels, and then of course the media was like, "Well, why didn't he say lira or yuan? It must be because he hates Jews." I'm like, "No, idiot, because it's a Yiddish expression. You know, it's an old Hebrew. Jews made up the expression, so of course they say shekels. Right. You know, as opposed to another form of currency. So I'm having him on, and he's one of the fun people I met in Miami. Because I got to tell you, just because now that I know you know the area, the Miami Trump rally was particularly fun because of such a high number of internationals, and not just Latin Americans down there. You just got more of that than you would in a typical Trump rally in Ohio. And you heard about people from all these countries who knew about communism, who knew these types, and of course the Cuban Americans are the strongest that way. I mean, they really have a lot to say because they remember it within a generation. And so that's ironically who I'm going to have on. And I probably need to leave a little time for him because it's an hour-long show. But I'm very appreciative that you gave us over 35 minutes here because these are great insights. And, I'm really looking forward to part 2 and part 3. Any final thoughts from you, Laura? A message to the audience, things people need to do?
No, I mean, look, exposés like this don't come cheap, right? So I encourage everyone to, if you're not already supporting an organization, support organizations like Project Veritas and Rebel Media because, all of this work comes at a price, especially, support Project Veritas because, as you can see, it really pays off and he's doing God's work and it's really going to have an impact on this country. It's going to save us, right? Because you just look at how much conflict and tension and hate there's been as a result of the liberal mainstream media narratives, and James O'Keefe really saved the day today. So.
Yeah, well, he's going to do it even more when part 2 and 3 are. Oh, but you didn't mention something. It might be because you've gotten enough donations, but I noticed there was a Laura Loomer Defense Fund because of your little incident with Shakespeare in the Park. Are you still taking donations for that, or just being too humble?
No, people can go to freelaura.com if they're interested in supporting that. I have a court date in August, so I have a lawyer who's been dealing with this issue for me. So. I appreciate everyone's support, everyone who's supported me, and, spread the word about all of these stories that are happening. So thank you.
Great work, Laura Loomer, and I'm so appreciative that when you're as tired as you are and busy as you are, you gave me this much time. So thanks for all the work.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for covering the story.
Sure. Talk to you soon, hopefully.
Thanks. Bye-bye.